Okay, so friends, we're coming to you today with an update about the Local Movements Workplace Project. We have been hard at work behind the scenes working with our national admin team and moving forward on this project, specifically with the two anchor offices that we shared about a couple of months ago. So wanted to just dive in with an update about this. So as you know, we looked at various locations in both Rocky Mount and the Triangle. We had different members of our community visit spaces with us, core members, alumni, staff members, and then talk through in different settings. We've also had the opportunity to talk through what we would want out of an office space or resource. We have leaned heavily for staff input on that. We've leaned heavily on the survey you all did back a few months ago and the analysis that our national admin team brought back to us about that. And then as we got into it, we started looking at the real deal financials. And so that really started to make it clear that we would have to spend as much, if not more, than our previous space at American Tobacco was to be in two spaces that were larger than 2,000 square feet. So our early thinking was like, we're going to be in spaces like 2,500 square feet in both places, 3,000 square feet in both places. And then at the point at which we realized that was going to be cost prohibitive, it really would have prevented us from being able to have co-working spaces in other communities. It would have kept us from the savings that we ultimately wanted out of this process. We decided to only consider spaces, and when I say we there, I mean Andrew and I, decided to only consider spaces that were 1,800 to 2,000 square feet in buildings that had additional spaces available to us, like conference rooms that we could reserve and training rooms, making it so that what we are paying for month to month is less space, but that we would still have access to the spaces that our team needs. Because the reality is that when we get together as a staff, when we bring our core members and alumni together, what we really need is large collaborative spaces. And so you'll remember our American Tobacco office actually wasn't really providing that to us either, because we were too large to fit in what we call our large conference room. And so the spaces that we are working on now are going to allow us some of the smaller collaborative spaces, some virtual engagement, and then also the access to these other spaces. So at this time, because of that choice, we will still be able to make investments in our other communities that are not the two anchor office communities, which we then will want to prioritize co-working spaces with in partnership with other organizations, as we've already shared. So for more information on where we are landing with each of our two spaces, I've invited Maso and Kate to share a little bit about where we are going to be come spring of 2019. So I will turn it over to Maso.
Thanks, Elizabeth. So a couple things. I had the privilege and the opportunity to work alongside Elizabeth to kind of figure out what was the best way to really decide and go about deciding a space for Rocky Mount based off the work that we've done, based off of the core members, alumni, community, as well as like what opportunities and what would that actually afford us. So in Rocky Mount, there are a couple different places that we looked at, including Self-Help, which is operated in downtown Rocky Mount, and in Rocky Mount Mills, where our tentative office had been previously. And during that process, we were able to meet with core members, alums, and really sit down and do some tours, as well as staff. Both Elizabeth and Kate were there as well. But do some tours to really look at and reimagine what would that space be, what could we use that space for, and what would that space actually look like, and then get the input as far as like, is that something we want? Is that in service of saying what we want to be sure with community? So it really just didn't feel right to do something like this, absent of their voices. So within that, based off of all of that insight, what we landed on was Rocky Mount Mills. And there were a couple of reasons, yay! A couple of reasons for that decision. One, obviously, as Elizabeth named, was the financial and the tactical reason as far as there being an opportunity. So there really is an opportunity to create in this space since it is still being built inside. So part of that means that we would have access to not only larger conference rooms and event spaces that will also be within that area, but also we are able to design a smaller space. So roughly between 1,800 to 2,000 square feet, which gives us just more opportunity to really expand and see what do we want this space to be as far as collaborative space, what do we want it to look like for spaces that core members and alums and community could actually interact with, as well as what we would need as a staff. So taking all of that into consideration in the design process was something that seemed like a really big opportunity when we were looking at moving into a space. And then the other reason is that we would actually be one of the anchor tenants in Rocky Mount Mills. So I've been working alongside, as well as Elizabeth, as well as Daniel, with Evan Chavez. There we go. Thank you. Evan Chavez, who is the real estate development manager with Capital Broadcasting in Rocky Mount Mills, and kind of really answering some of those difficult questions and making sure that we're also posing some of the questions to them as well to make sure that it's mission aligned. And some of those questions were, how are you bringing community into the space, and how are you bringing in the communities that we serve and the mission that we have as Teach for America into the space, so that it wasn't feeling as if it was just like imposing into this great brand new space, but it really was informed by the work that we do and really informed by what we believe to be true in our theory of change within Rocky Mount and all Eastern North Carolina. And one of those things is, how do we build connectedness? How do we invite partnership, and how do we actually facilitate a space for collaboration? So from that came the idea of a social impact hub, which is essentially would be us as an anchor tenant, as well as other prominent organizations that are directly doing work that essentially impacts Rocky Mount as a whole and all Eastern North Carolina, to say, like, what would it look like to have a space, or what would it look like just for us to imagine a space where we could collaborate and work together. And we did that in both the organic moments of just being in the hallway, of just walking through to the office, as well as us having our own space to work alongside when we're bringing in community to actually bridge that gap, I would say, for access into the mill. And that's taking into account some of the feedback that's been given to the mills as far as it not necessarily feeling accessible. So figuring out what would our role in making sure that not only is it accessible, but that it's reflective of the communities that we serve and the work that we do. So that's like a really unique opportunity that's aligned not only with just having a space, but I think moving forward with the idea of having the localized context and what it means to be responsive to that local context in pursuit of actually achieving impact. So next, I'm going to pass it on to Kate.
Hey y'all, and that was the first time I had heard Maso share in that way about Rocky Mount Mills, and I'm like really excited. So I just want to like echo that and just say like, yes, I'm so excited. Okay, so I am gonna announce where we're gonna be in the Triangle, which I know has been on a lot of y'all's minds. It's been on mine for sure. So in the Triangle process, we considered spaces in Durham, Raleigh, and RTP, and we ultimately landed on deciding to be at the Frontier, which is in RTP, which is really exciting. So some of you have actually already worked out of the Frontier, and pretty much all of us will have worked out of the Frontier, I hope, by the end of the week this week. So you'll actually get a chance to see what it is and how cool of a space it is. But the Frontier is intentionally a campus that offers creative workspaces for startups, research organizations, and other nonprofits. And I was not around in the era when Triangle Community Foundation was next door to us at American Tobacco, but they're actually at the Frontier now, and so we will be neighbors with them again, which is exciting. So super excited about this space. Again, this is a space kind of like Rocky Mount Mills, where we will actually get to design the space ourselves and pick the square footage. So the actual square footage is going to be 1,800 feet. That sounds really small to me, at least, but it's actually going to feel really big. And I'm really excited because we're intentionally building in spaces for breakout conference rooms, call centers. There's going to be a beautiful maternity room. Shout out to the moms. And just like co-working space. And I think we've learned that that's what our staff wants and needs out of our space through this process in our temporary space. And so I'm really excited to see that come to fruition at the Frontier. And let me make sure I'm going through all my notes here. Yeah, I'm like super excited. I think it's going to be a really great space. I hope you are too. And I'm going to pass it back over to Elizabeth to close this out.
Yeah, I'm obviously really excited about where this project is landing in both of these places. I feel like
this is a really exciting moment for Teach for America and Eastern North Carolina in both. And I really think that by being in both places, we are kind of spanning lots of different parts of our network. So I will share one of the things I've really been thinking about and have shared with Andrew in this process, and I would love to share with everyone, is I'm really starting to think about Rocky Mount as the central hub location for our regional work. That when we think about having a team meeting, it most likely will be in the Rocky Mount office. And that's like because of geography, and it's because of the proximity to all of the work that's happening in the rural spaces in our region. And then I'm thinking about the triangle space, this frontier space, as the base for our alumni in the triangle and as the connector to our national work. So when you imagine where might we do selection, it was not happening here at our temporary space, but we will have the ability to do that at the frontier because we'll have access to some of these other spaces. So just to give you like a frame for these two different anchor offices, that's something that I've been thinking. And I just think like both of them are allowing us a different geographic proximity than we have previously had. And so I'm just very excited about where we're going to land. So I will just close it out by saying a big thanks to the members of this team who have been a part of this process so far. We're still not done yet. We still got a ways to go, and we will still be sharing things out like floor plans. And, now we turn the corner really into like the programming part of this. We've been heavily in discovery mode. If you think about that PowerPoint I shared a long time ago, we were in discovery mode. We've now landed on decisions for these. And so we're in programming where we're really going to start to think about what does it look like to live and breathe and do our work in these spaces. And so we will invite all of you to be a part of setting those norms and doing that work together. And so I just would say thank you to those of you who have engaged so far and all of you who will engage moving forward. And I also want to thank the national admin team. I know they won't necessarily hear this, but they've done a ton of work to help us get here. And with that, I'll also mention a little bit of our timeline. Right now, we are projected to move into the frontier by February 1st and then to Rocky Mount Mills by March 1st. And I will optimistically say that we will move into these spaces by spring of 2019. I will say that those timelines rarely actually happen as they are predicted to, but that's what we're aiming for. And then as Kate mentioned, like I am so pumped for y'all to get to be in the frontier space tomorrow. We actually will be in the training room across the hall from our new office. So you'll get a chance to peek your head in and see what's there. And as soon as we know where we'll be at Rocky Mount Mills, we'll arrange to do something like that there too, so that we can get a preview. So just really excited about where we are. Happy to answer questions as they come up for folks. So please reach out, Slack, text, set up a call, whatever. And look forward to talking with you all about this more over the next couple of days. Thank you so much to Kate and Masso for helping me make this announcement.